Hey, good morning, everybody. It's early, of course, but thought I'd do this live. You can probably see this through the various MLP Facebook pages I'm on. I will hopefully have this up on Twitter, maybe even after the broadcast. So, um, for those watching over there, courtesy of Twitter, thank you. YouTube, of course, the MLP forums. As I said in the message, ignore the above one. I was switching out headsets and didn't realize that the headset I had switched out with was already set, so I couldn't do any recording. You couldn't really hear me or anything. So, um, but anyway, you kind of see the title down below, and the title is uh, it's kind of a question in a sense. In fact, the question's in the description. Um, Basically, I think we all kind of wonder. Um, Basically, if Lauren Faust had stayed with the show, I mean, we all know that Lauren Faust had developed this incarnation of MLP for this generation, this being the fourth generation of MLP. She had developed it, so that it could broaden across all aspects of media, broaden across all aspects of gender, age, you name it. And people like Jason Teresen, Megan McCarthy, Amy Kinney Rogers, all of them have taken that all of them had and still have. I mean, all of them had and still do take that to heart. Anytime they do an episode for the show, they do a season. They take what Lauren Faust had envisioned and try to apply it nowadays to what we see on the air. Um, we know one thing is, I guess somebody that was close with Lauren, Megan, is one of the head people in charge of the movie, along with Jason. We know that she is coming back for the next season. We know that the series has been carried on by people like M.A. Larson. Like I said, Amy Kinney Rogers. Last episode she did was in season 5 with the main attraction, which guest starred Lena Hall as AJ's childhood friend, Rara. So again, like I said, to me, it was obvious that a lot of these people took what Lauren had set out to do and basically said, okay, we're going to apply this to the show. Oh, Lauren wanted us to do it this way. We're going to apply it this way, and obviously that's what they did. Um, But again, I think the question gets raised by a lot of people is what would have happened if Lauren had remained? What would have been done differently? Well, we know one of the things that Lauren is not a fan of, particularly. And Lauren, I don't know if you'll watch this, if you'll take time to watch this, but we know that Lauren is particularly not a fan of the Equestria Girls spinoff. She has made it clear, her husband as well has made it clear that Lauren's intention was never to go in that direction. It's like she just didn't feel there was a need to do that, and that the main focus should be on what brought the show or what brings the show to the dance as is. And you even have someone like Silver Quill who came out and basically mentioned when he did a review of the first Equestria Girls movie. He mentioned how Lauren Faust felt about it, how her husband felt about it, and basically he mentioned that the only reason it was made, and he even said the same thing I've said, is the fact that it was only done as an answer, basically, to the high school doll craze that was going on. Like with Monster High and such. And obviously Hasbro, like I've said before, has wanted a piece of that pie. They wanted a piece of it. They wanted to um, look into it and say, "Hey, this is what we want. This is what we want to sink our teeth into." And apparently that's what they did. But Lauren Faust has been very adamant about it, that she is not particularly a fan, and that's quite understanding. I mean, when you, you put yourself in Lauren's shoes. I mean, if your original plan and if your original blueprint for a show, even if it's a show that's the next incarnation of a long-standing 30-plus-year franchise, or going on 30 years. I think at the time when the show came out, it was like, what was it, like 27 years or something. But when you have a blueprint set out on how you want to present the fourth incarnation of a 25-plus-year-old franchise, and then as soon as you think you're leaving it in good hands, all of a sudden you get word that, oh, by the way, we want to go and do this spin-off. You apparently, you may not be directly involved as much as you were before, so you'll have more of a freedom of speech to express how you feel. And apparently Lauren it was and I guess is still not happy with that spinoff. um and it's quite understandable, because like I said, she didn't envision that being a part of it. And matter of fact, the topic of this live video is, what would have happened had she remained on? What would have been done differently? And my opinion is she probably would have explored the Sunset Shimmer deal, but she wouldn't have done it in the way that they did with it. She wouldn't have done it, from what I'm saying, is she wouldn't have done it the way they did with Equestria Girls. She would have instead, knowing how Lauren Faust, well, not knowing specifically, but kind of having an understanding, um, and being a longtime fan like Silver Quill of Hasbro products and stuff, and how certain story arcs would come to be. He said how certain story arcs would come to be. Um, I kind of have this. I guess you could say I kind of have this theory. This theory that had Lauren stayed on, again, she probably would have explored the Sunset Shimmer deal with Megan, but she probably would have had Megan go in another direction. Instead of the Equestria Girls deal, she would have had Megan probably do a multi-part arc based in the Friendship is Magic world, and probably would have gone more in depth as to why Sunset was doing this, what her problem was. I think she definitely would have gone in a different direction with it. Like I said, I don't think she would have. I don't think she would have done the Equestria Girls thing. She would have done more of a, hey, let's see what happens if we do a Friendship is Magic kind of deal out of it, and go from there. And I think that would have worked. I really think, honestly, that if Lauren was still a part, if Lauren still had a say in the show, and some people say she still does in some capacity, but if she had remained on full time with the show, if she had stayed on My Little Pony Friendship is Magic full time, I think she would have done the Sunset Shimmer deal a lot differently, and she wouldn't a lot differently than what was originally done. She wouldn't have done the Equestria Girls deal. She would have done, like I said, a multi-part story arc, maybe two to three parts, maybe four parts, to really delve deep into who Sunset is, why she's doing this, and you could still have the same outcome. Lauren would probably go with the same outcome, but not in this, but not the way that was done in Equestria Girls. Um, so I think she would have done that a lot differently. Another thing, I think she probably would have done differently is she probably would have made Celestia and Luna a lot more active in the show. She probably would have made them a lot more active. She probably would have had them be more involved with certain story arcs than they had been in the past. Lately over the past couple of seasons, we've kind of seen them get a little bit more involved, a little bit more interactive in some cases, um, but not much. The crystalline was a lot of people said was a good example of how they should be used properly. Um, what else? I guess you could say for Luna, some of the episodes that she was in, some people, some bronies, Pegasisters, they may agree or disagree that some of those episodes were good for her to be in. Um, but yeah, I look at the fact that any one of those episodes, um, in my opinion, with Luna involving Luna, whether she was helping the CMCs or was focused on her, I think Lauren would have, if she had remained, she would have put more emphasis on some of these stories, like the Do Princess's Dream of Animated Sheep deal, or not animated sheep, but whatever it was called. Do Princess Dream of Sheep. Basically, the Luna episode with um, basically the Luna episode involving the Tartarus or Tabarus or whatever it's called. I think Lauren would have explored that a lot more. I think she would have delved more deep into it. And as a matter of fact, as people like Silver Quill and Firebrand have mentioned in their reviews, and Lightning Bliss and Toon Tricky and Toon Trick Pony, and I know I'm name dropping a lot of the prominent reviewers, but a lot of them have said that basically Do Princess's Dream of Animated Sheep, or whatever the name of it. It's called Do Princess Dream of Sheep or something like that. Um, had it been done in a two-parter, it would have worked a lot better because you could have explored more as to why Luna created this. You could have had Celestia involved, and you would have given more character depth to Luna's character, and basically give the fans more of an understanding instead of rushing into things. And I believe, and I'm sure the people watching would agree, that Lauren, had she stayed on board, Lauren Faust, if she had stayed on board, would definitely have made sure that an episode like that would be a two-parter. She would definitely go in that direction. But that's not the only thing. You take a look at the two-part Tareq episode. With their incarnation of Tareq, and knowing how that is, I think definitely Lauren would have really, in my opinion, and I don't know if anybody would watching would agree. I think Lauren Faust would have really played with this idea a lot because you're bringing in basically a Generation One villain, and knowing possibly you got a lot of older viewers that grew up on Generation One, you might want to throw more references in there instead of just a redesign and sort of a backstory with you know a backstory and stuff that kind of can that's that presents characters from G1 but in a new light. or in a new, different circumstance. And I think honestly, I think Lauren, um, had she remained on the show for the Tareq episode, for the Tareq two-parter, I think really, like I said, could have played with this idea. I mean, like I said, knowing that you got this adult fan base just growing at that time, and a lot of them growing up, and a lot of that fan base having grown up with Generation One, that you want to throw them a bit of a bone. So why not have something more happen with Turek? Have him not just suck out the magic and the magic that's necessary out of the three pony tribes that he or races that he needs to gain magic and power from. But at the same time, in my opinion, had Lauren stayed on, I think she would have thrown something else in there. She would have thrown something like, as soon as he sucks, the energy out of them, then whatever dark magic he has gets, thrown into them, and they mutate or they transform into these giant monsters, dark incarnations, monstrous incarnations of themselves that can only be restored after he's defeated. So, in a sense, you kind of throw a bone, not a bone, but you kind of reference what he had done to four of the characters in the pilot episode of G1, but you do it in a way to where the result, after he sucks the energy out, the life force almost out of the certain pony races that he needs to, that the result is they become these monstrous beings. They temporarily turn into these monstrous beings that serve him, that follow him. And again, like I said, the only way they could be restored is for Tareq to be defeated. And I think that really, in my opinion, could have worked. But again, I believe only, but I believe it could only have worked had Lauren remained on the show. Another thing I think Lauren would have done is really put more is how do I put this? You reform Starlight Glimmer, and you want to focus season six, a majority of season six, well, not a majority, but most parts of season six, you want to focus on Starlight Glimmer, being Twilight student and kind of proving the fact that, and kind of proving to everyone that she's changed, that she has, that yes, she regrets what she's done, but now she's ready to move forward. And I think Lauren, had she remained on the show, could have really had fun with this. She could have really um, played around with this season story. I guess you could say this season long sub arc, with Starlight. She could have really explored a lot more. You could have, you could have had Starlight be be more along the lines like at first, like we see in the first episode, she's kind of reluctant to do her first lesson, but in a sense, she kind of does do the lesson, but in a way she doesn't expect. But I think honestly, Lauren Faust would have had a lot of fun with season six, and especially with the Starlight Glimmer redemption story arc that played throughout some of the season, if not most of it, in the eyes of some fans. I think she would have had a lot of fun because you have all these other possibilities than what you put Starlight in. And I think what she would have done, and this is the honest truth, this is my honest opinion and honest truth. I think Lauren Faust, in my opinion, would have set up something in the middle of last season that indicated that not only is Starlight, that not only, well, basically, what I'm trying to say is I think she would have set something up to where there's an indicating hint that Starlight may be taking Twilight's place. That if Starlight proves herself worthy of redeeming and making up for what she had done and learning about the true power of friendship, that, in my opinion, Lauren Faust probably would have thrown in this little hint that after Starlight graduates, then instead of Starlight having to send her away like Celestia did with Twilight, that Starlight instead would probably take over Twilight's place as sort of like the leader of the main six, or now the newest member of the main six, or whatever. Well, Twilight, now being a princess, would um, go on and focus more on her princessy duties, and Starlight would kind of take over in the spot that she left behind, and now you have the rest of the main six, the main five, if you will, in Rarity, Applejack, Rainbow Dash, Fluttershy, and even Spike. You know, having to in this seventh season, in this current season, having to trust Twilight's instincts and her judgment to allow Starlight to be the new head pony in the group. Let her be the one that leads the charge. So I think Lauren would have, like I said, played with that possibility. Like I said, kind of hint at that possibility, hint at that scenario happening. Um, happening in season 7. She would have hinted at it in season 6, midway through. So I think Lauren Faust, in my opinion, would have really had fun, like I said, with Starlight's arc in season 6, and like I said, probably would have thrown in that twist that Starlight could be the one that takes over Twilight's spot, because now Twilight's a princess. She's got to focus more on that. Another thing, I think she would have done is with the Sirens. I think that's what they were called. I think that's what they were called. I think they were called the Sirens or something like that. And I think what would have happened is, instead of focusing another Equestria Girls movie on it, she would have done maybe a 2-part episode as a premiere or a finale where you brought the Sirens in there. And I think, in my opinion, Lauren Faust probably would have found a way to take some of the elements you got in Rainbow Rocks and apply them somewhat in this 2-part finale in the main show, and that would have worked just as well. And I think some people might even agree, watching right now live, that not only would that have worked, it probably would have worked a lot better. But again, my opinion, that's only if Lauren Faust would have stayed and remained on the show and not left it. Um, what else? You know, going back to Twilight being a princess, I know a lot of people feel that that pretty much brought down the show a little bit, brought down her character a little bit. Um, I can't really say that, really, because I think depending on the certain story arcs or story, excuse me there, but depending on the certain story aspects in the show, I think honestly, um, I think they've done a decent job with her. I mean, she's still Twilight. One thing I will say about Equestria Girls before they went to the human part of it is she basically told Spike that she wasn't sure whether or not, she would be, if she could live up to being a leader, or even being a princess. Basically playing on the idea that, in a sense, that playing up on the idea that you almost can sense that even though Twilight is taking on this responsibility and has earned that title, that you almost sense from a character standpoint Twilight not really wanting to be in this position. And I believe, in my opinion, that if Lauren Faust would have remained on with the show, that she would have dedicated all this, because Twilight became a princess what in season 4, at the beginning of season, at the end of season 3 and into season 4. So I think what would have happened is, and we did, and some people would say you did see it in season 4 and somewhat season 5, but I think honestly they could have saved, and I think anybody would agree with this, they could have saved it to the finale of the series. Now, if the series was to go on for, like I've been saying, about a decade, if it goes on for 10 seasons, a decade's worth of episodes, that, in my opinion, if Lauren Faust had remained, she would have used either the season Twilight became a princess or even the season afterwards, as sort of a confliction. It's sort of a season of confliction for Twilight. Like, maybe she would have done this little sub arc where Twilight is conflicted of whether or not she's worthy of this. I mean, yes, like I said, they did touch upon it in the season in the fourth and fifth season, but I think Lauren Faust would have played with it more. As a matter of fact, the third season you could have opened it up with Celestia telling her that she's just got so many tests to go, that she's close to graduating out from being her student, and then you have Celestia tell her what she's in store for once she graduates, and that's the fact that if she graduates, passes her test, she will prove herself worthy of being the princess. She would have proven herself worthy of being a princess, but being the princess of friendship. Basically, not just the um, welder or the bearer of the element of friendship, but worthy of being the princess of friendship. And you could have Twilight kind of be conflicted about that, realizing, wait a minute, I'm going to possibly become this. I'm possibly going to have this new status thrust upon me. You know, am I ready for this? Am I ready for this possibility? Do I want to be in this position? Do I want to be in this, have the have this responsibility on my shoulder? And Lauren Faust, from what I can understand, probably would have played, in my opinion, would have played with that. She would have said, you know what, let's have Twilight during certain moments in the season, certain episodes, be conflicted of whether or not she's going to be able to live up to that possibility should it happen. So I think she would have done that one right. The whole Crystal Empire, I think she would have done. I think this is the way I look at it. The whole Canterlot wedding deal, she wouldn't have had a problem with. I think she was cool with that. But as far as the Crystal Empire goes, the finale to that, I think she would have gone more than just 2 parts. I think she probably would have done a 4-part finale. And the reason I say that is because you have so much history with Sombra you could have explored. You could have gone into more depth, I should say, could have gone into more depth about what Sombra plans to do. That, to me, it a 4-parter would have done it a lot more justice. And again, from what people have said about Lauren Faust at times, I think she would have would really want to make that happen. She would really want to explore that possibility and really go with it and see what happens. So I think she would have done a lot more with the Crystal Empire. She probably would have made it a more of a 4-part episode event. As far as the crystalline goes and the birth of Flurry Heart, that that right there is a that right there I think really excuse me. But that, in my opinion, the crystalline, in my opinion, probably I don't know what Lauren would have done with that. I mean, I think, in my opinion, she may have gone with it, honestly, but I think I think she would have given more of an answer as to why Flurry Heart became a natural born alicorn. You know, she probably wouldn't have just had Luna say, it's beyond their understanding. She probably wouldn't have had Celestia say, it's something that Equestria has never seen. She probably would have not had him say something like that. Maybe she would have had us. Maybe she would have had Luna and Celestia acknowledge the fact that yes, they've never seen it. They don't understand it. Yes, the country has never seen. Yes, the Equestria overall has never seen something like this. But instead of just them acknowledging that, the way Lauren Faust I think would have played it is she probably would have had at least one of them say, like with Celestia, she probably would have had Celestia say, look, as far as Equestria goes, this has never happened, but we can't say for anything beyond we can't say, we can't say anything that, as far as what happened before Equestria became Equestria. We can't say what happened, before that. If this happened, before Equestria's creation or not, we can't really say. She would have had them at least acknowledge that. Another thing I think she would have played with, as far as the crystalline goes, is we know that Crystallis was coming back at the end of the two-part premiere. We knew she was coming back, and to me, you could have had Crystallis. To me, I think Lauren Faust would have gone back to Crystallis on numerous occasions, and maybe had Crystallis start coming up with some kind of plan, some kind of idea to to not just capture everybody, but to basically capture Flurry Heart. Like maybe she has, because I think the way Lauren Faust, in my opinion, would have played with it is she would have had a guard. She would have had one of Crystallis's subjects or minions into disguise of a royal guard, and then leave to report to Crystallis what they had seen, what they had discovered, and basically you have Crystallis plan throughout the season to want to seize control of that baby, wanting to capture Flurry Heart so she can mold her in her image, and thus have the most powerful being on her side, so she can conquer all of Equestria herself. And that to me could have really been something that I think honestly, how do I put this? I think honestly, uh, Lauren would have worked. Lauren would definitely have explored. Another thing I think Lauren would have done was definitely use this season, as I mentioned before, to really test Starlight out. Like you get to the midpoint of the season, you get like to that halfway point where the season goes on hiatus for at least about a month or two before coming back with new episodes. You have or goes on a break before doing it for a few weeks or a month or so before presenting new episodes, and you have right at that midpoint season finale, that mid-season finale, you have that hint dropped that Starlight might be the successor to Twilight if she graduates under Twilight's tutelage. So in my opinion, in my opinion, I think Lauren would have fun doing something like that. But honestly, overall, I think some of the things I've mentioned. It's just my opinion, but I believe Lauren Faust would have definitely done a lot of things differently. She definitely wouldn't focus or do the Equestria Girls, but she would definitely find a way to incorporate maybe some of those story arcs into the main series and have them work like that. Um, Overall, I really can't say any more than that. Um, like I said, as far as Turak's return, I think she could have really had fun with that. Do that as a multi-part episodes instead of two parts, and just really go all out with it. Like I said, basically have the ponies that he sucks the energy out of turn into these monstrous creatures that follow his command and will only change back once he's defeated. So I think honestly, if Lauren had stayed on the show, that definitely would have been something people would get a kick out of. They would definitely enjoy that if that would have been the case. But anyway, again, like I said, I think she would have done things a lot differently. Some of the things I've mentioned, I believe, in my opinion, she would have done differently. But maybe you guys disagree with me on that. But hey, it's just my opinion. Just thought I'd give it to you guys, and let me know what you think. What do you think would have been done differently? What do you think would have been done differently had Lauren Faust stayed on the show? What do you think she would have done? Do you agree with some of the opinions and theories that I've come up with of what could have happened? What are your thoughts? Let me know down below. Thank you all for watching this live early on this Tuesday morning. Comment below. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to y'all later. God bless. Take care. Thank you for watching on the MLP Facebook groups pages that I've linked this to, as well as on the MLP forums where the topic is. Thank you all for watching. And for those that are going to watch later on Twitter and maybe even DeviantArt, thank you all for watching as well. God bless. Take care. I'm out.